My name is Leo. Listen to this story completely because it will touch your heart. It will make you feel something special, something real. It will show you the beauty of kindness, love, and life. Do not miss even a word. One day, I was on my way to visit my grandmother. She lived in a small village about 2 hours from the city. The road was long and quiet, with tall trees on both sides. The sky was clear blue, and the sun was gentle. I was driving slowly, enjoying the peaceful view. After about an hour, I saw something on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was just a bundle of clothes, but as I got closer, I realized it was a man. He was sitting on the ground, holding his leg. His face looked tired and full of pain. I slowed down and stopped the car. I opened the window and called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The man looked up at me. His eyes were sad, but he smiled weakly. "I am fine," he said softly, but I could see that he was not fine. His leg was swollen, and he was holding it tightly. I got out of the car and walked towards him. "What happened?" I asked. He sighed. "I was walking home from work. I slipped and fell into a ditch. I twisted my ankle. It hurts, but I will be okay." I looked at his leg again. It was clear that he was in pain. "Let me take you to the hospital," I said. The man quickly shook his head. No, I do not want to bother you. I live nearby, I can walk slowly." But he could not even stand properly. I could not leave him like that. I bent down and gently put my hand on his shoulder. "Please, it is no trouble. Let me help you." The man looked at me for a moment. His eyes softened, and he gave a small nod. I helped him to his feet and supported him as he limped towards my car. He winced with every step, and I could feel how much pain he was in. Once he was seated, I got back into the driver's seat. As I started driving, I glanced at him. He was looking out of the window with tired eyes. "Do you have family at home?" I asked softly. He smiled faintly. "Yes, my wife and my little daughter. They are waiting for me. I was hurrying home because I promised to bring my daughter some sweets. She loves sweets." His voice was gentle, but I could feel the love in it. I asked, "How old is your daughter?" 4, he said with a soft smile. "She has small hands, but she hugs me so tightly, it makes me feel strong." I smiled too, imagining the little girl's innocent face. When we reached the hospital, I helped him out of the car. The nurse brought a wheelchair, and they took him inside. I sat in the waiting area. I did not know him, but somehow I wanted to stay. After some time, the doctor came out. He smiled and said, "It is just a sprain, nothing serious. He needs to rest for a few days." I was relieved. The man came out with a bandage around his ankle. When he saw me, he smiled. "Thank you," he said softly. His eyes were full of gratitude. I helped him back into the car. As I drove, he gave me directions to his house. It was a small home with a little garden in front. When we stopped, the door opened and a small girl came running out. "Papa!" she shouted with joy. The man's eyes filled with tears. He opened the car door slowly, and the little girl ran into his arms. He winced a little because of his leg, but he held her tightly. "I missed you, Papa," the little girl said. She kissed his cheek again and again. His wife came out too. She looked worried at first, but when she saw her husband smiling, she relaxed. The man introduced me. This kind man helped me. He brought me here. His wife's eyes filled with tears. She held my hands and said, "Thank you. Thank you so much." I smiled softly. "It was nothing. I am glad I could help." The little girl suddenly ran inside and came back with a small, colorful candy in her hand. She held it out to me. "Here. For you," she said with a bright smile. I bent down and took the candy. "Thank you. This is the sweetest gift I have ever received." Her eyes sparkled and she giggled. As I drove away, I kept looking at the candy in my hand. It was just a small piece of sweet, but it meant so much. That little girl, with her pure heart, gave me the only sweet she had. She did not care about how small it was. She just wanted to give. And in that moment, I realized something. It is not about how much we have. It is about how much love we put into giving. Even a small candy given with love can mean the world. As I continued driving to my grandmother's house, I felt a strange warmth in my heart. The world seemed a little kinder, a little brighter. And my dear listener, if this story touched your heart, let it remind you of something important. Kindness does not have to be big. Sometimes the smallest acts of care create the biggest impact. If you believe in kindness, if you believe in love, then like this story and subscribe. Because there are many more stories waiting for you. Stories that will make you feel, think, and love a little more every day. And remember, you never know whose life you might change with a small act of kindness. Be that person. As I drove on, the sun began to set. The sky was painted with soft shades of pink, orange, and purple. The warm colors made the road feel magical, as if the world itself was smiling. I rolled down the window and let the cool evening breeze touch my face. The sweet sound of birds returning to their nests filled the air. But even with all this beauty around me, my heart was still thinking about the man, his little girl, and that small piece of candy. I kept the candy in my hand, holding it gently. It was not just a sweet, it was a symbol of pure love, of innocence, of kindness. As I continued driving, I saw a small tea stall by the side of the road. I felt a sudden urge to stop. I pulled over and parked my car. The stall was simple, a wooden table, a few plastic chairs, and a small stove with a kettle boiling. An old man with kind eyes and a white beard was making tea. I walked up and smiled. "1 cup of tea, please." The old man nodded and began making the tea. His hands were slow but steady. As I waited, I noticed a young boy sitting nearby. He was barefoot, with dirty clothes, and his hair was messy. He was staring at the people drinking tea, but he did not say a word. I watched him for a moment. Then I walked over and sat down beside him. "Hey," I said softly. "Are you hungry?" The boy's eyes widened, but he didn't say anything. He just looked down at his feet. I gently placed my hand on his shoulder. "It is okay. You can tell me." He slowly nodded. I smiled and called the old man. "Can you give this boy something to eat?" The old man looked at the boy and nodded. He quickly made a small plate of bread and some vegetables. The boy looked at the food with big, hungry eyes. "Go ahead. Eat," I said softly. The boy hesitated for a moment, then quickly picked up the bread. He took small bites at first, but soon he started eating faster. I could see how hungry he was. As he ate, I sat beside him quietly. I did not want to rush him. I just wanted him to feel safe. When he finished, he looked at me shyly. "Thank you," he whispered. I smiled. "Do you live around here?" The boy nodded. "I live with my little sister. Our parents passed away. We stay in a small hut nearby. I was looking for some food for her." His words made my chest tighten. This small boy, hungry himself, was walking around looking for food for his sister. His heart was full of love, even though life had been so cruel to him. I felt tears in my eyes, but I held them back. I reached into my pocket and gave him some money. "Here, buy some food for you and your sister." The boy's eyes grew wide. He stared at the money but did not take it. "No," he said softly, shaking his head. "It is too much. I only need a little." His words made my heart ache. Even though he had nothing, he still did not want to take more than he needed. I smiled gently. "It is okay. You can save the rest for tomorrow." The boy looked at me for a moment. Then he slowly took the money with small hands. He clutched it tightly, as if it was the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," he said again, but this time his voice was stronger. I stood up and smiled. "Take care of your sister. You are very brave." As I walked back to my car, I felt something small tug at my hand. I turned around. The boy was standing behind me. His small hands held something. He opened his palm, and my eyes filled with tears. In his hand was a small, shiny marble. It was old and scratched, but the boy held it like a treasure. "Here," he said softly, "for you." I bent down and looked at him. "But this is yours. You do not have to give it to me." The boy shook his head. "You helped me. I want you to have it. It is lucky." I felt my throat tighten. With shaky hands, I took the small marble. "Thank you. This is the best gift I have ever received." The boy smiled brightly, and then he turned and ran off down the road, holding the money tightly in his hand. I stood there, holding the small marble. It was just a little glass ball, but to me it was a symbol of something far greater. A symbol of love, of gratitude, of a heart that still knew how to give, even when it had so little. I slowly walked back to my car. I sat inside and stared at the marble in my hand. It sparkled softly in the golden light of the sunset. As I continued driving, my mind was full of thoughts. The boy, the man, the little girl, the candy, the marble, everything kept replaying in my head. I realized something beautiful. Kindness is never about how much we have. It is about how much we are willing to give. The man, in pain, still smiled for his daughter. The little girl gave me her only candy without hesitation, and the boy, with nothing in his pockets, gave me his most precious treasure. These people, though they had little, had the richest hearts. They gave not from their wealth but from their love. As I finally reached my grandmother's village, I felt different. Something inside me had changed. My heart felt fuller, warmer. I parked the car and stepped out. The village was quiet, with children playing in the field and elders sitting under trees talking softly. I walked down the small dirt path that led to my grandmother's house. And in my pocket, I held the little marble tightly. It was a reminder that kindness, no matter how small, is powerful. And my dear listener, if this story touched your heart, let it remind you of something important. You do not need to be rich to be kind. You do not need to have everything to give something. Even the smallest acts of love can change someone's world. If you believe in kindness, if you believe in spreading love, then like this story and subscribe. Because there are many more stories waiting for you, stories that will make you feel, think, and love a little more every day. And remember, you can be the light in someone's dark day. Be that light.